All right, so welcome to the permit prep class. Does everybody have one of these handouts?
Yep, I got it.
No, you do? So take that handout out, and I'd like to go over the mechanics of what it takes to get your permit. So first of all, you have to have a Class D license, a regular old driver's license. Are any of you Wisconsin residents? Everybody's Minnesota? Okay. All right. Then you're also going to need either a certified birth certificate or a passport. What's a certified birth certificate?
It's the one with the state seal on it.
It has a little embossed, like bumpy seal on it. Okay. So a photocopy doesn't cut it. They won't give you your permit without that certified copy of it, or a passport. Anybody born outside the U.S.? Because there's documents for that, and that's on the second page, I think, of your handout. The documents you would need if you don't have a U.S. passport. All right. Everybody here doing Class A? All right. When you do a Class A, you have to take 3 knowledge tests. The general knowledge, which is 50 questions. Air brakes, which is 30 questions. And then combinations, which is 20 questions. So a total of 100 questions. You want to study sections 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 in the manual to do that. And we're giving you all of those sections here in the green folder with the Minnesota manual in it. Now, we don't have the other sections in the manual. We just have what you need for the Class A or B is in this. So anybody watching from home, if you don't have one of these, you can get one of these in our office. I'm just looking to see if anybody was following us at home, but I don't see it. So these sections are what you study, and I'm going to explain how to study these things in just a little bit. For practice tests, I'm recommending cdltest.co. That's item number 4 on your handout. Now, there are a ton of practice websites out there, both in terms of computer stuff and apps for a phone. Good afternoon, welcome.
Hey,
Come on in. We're just going over the handout, going over the mechanics of what it takes to get a license or a permit to start with. Are you going to do Class A or Class B?
A.
Okay, and are you a Minnesota resident?
Yes.
Okay. So to get your permit, you're going to need your Minnesota regular license, then you're going to need a passport or a certified birth certificate. All right. Everything you need to study to prepare for the test is in this manual, sections 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6.
Nice.
You'll have to take 3 tests, a total of 100 questions. General knowledge, air brakes, and combinations.
Right, sure.
That's all right. Do you have one of the books with the handout?
No, not a clean book.
You need one, or you now have one. Okay. In the back insert is where the handout is.
Okay.
So for practice tests, I'm strongly recommending cdltest.co. Now, there's a whole bunch of them out there, right? This is the one that I would recommend, and you can access it through our website. If you go to or interstatedriving.com, sure. And then if you just click on resources here, the second one down is, third one down, practice permit tests, and that is cdltest.co. That's where I recommend you go for practice tests. And let me just caution you about this. Anything that you go to on the internet that has dmv.org, that's not a government agency. That's a private outfit that's trying to sell you stuff. Okay? So stay away from dmv.org. I wouldn't pay for anything in terms of helping you prepare for this. Everything you really need is available free through the internet. Okay? But that's where I recommend you go for practice tests is cdltest.co. About 98% of the questions are accurate to the Minnesota test. this is kind of interesting. I'm prohibited by rule from duplicating state tests. So I can't do what cdltest.co does. But again, they're per darn accurate to the point where it's the best that's out there. I do have people come to me and say, "Oh, I tried this one, I tried that one." Well, okay, but I've got one wife, she's great, I don't need any more. Okay, you know, if I got one that works, I don't need anything more than that. So this one works, I would use it. Okay. Now the manual is available online at mindriveinfo.org. Okay, so the state manual, the one that we've handed out to you, is also available online. So here is their main website. To get to the CDL manual, scroll down here to documents and go to more documents. The manual you see listed under documents, that's the car manual. You want the CDL, the truck one. So you go to more documents and you'll see it on the first page, top of the first page there. Click on commercial driver's license manual and there you are. Now, I like the online version for two reasons. First off, I can do this. And I like that.
Yeah.
Now I can read the dang thing, okay? And the other thing I like is the search engine they've got in this thing. If I create a search engine by doing Control F for find, whatever I type in, it will find exactly what I've typed in, nothing else, okay? So I've typed in slack adjusters. So it doesn't find the word slack and it doesn't find the word adjust. It finds only slack adjusters. So the benefit to that is I can find exactly what I'm looking for. It's the way my little brain works. It's very common for me to read something and then realize, geez, what was it that wait a minute now, what did that say? And I want to go back and find something. And now I got to read the whole stupid section again. So I think it's advantageous to have that find box so I can find something expeditiously. And then again, I like to being able to blow it up and magnify it so I can read it. All right. Then the other great thing, hang on, I'm going to do one more thing here. It also tells you how many times whatever it is that you're looking for comes up. In the manual. All right, so the other thing that the handout shows you here is that the manual is also available as an audio file. So let's open that up. Go back to mindriveinfo.org, and instead of clicking on the driver's manual, I scroll down, and every section of the manual is available on an audio file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to section 10 here, and I'm also going to put
Material
it on the screen.
On page 10-1 omitted. Continuing with the text. Section 10, Pre-Trip Vehicle Inspection Test. This section covers internal inspection, external inspection. During the pre-trip inspection, you must show that the vehicle is safe to drive. You will have to walk around the vehicle and point to or touch each item and explain to the examiner what you are checking and why. You will not have to crawl under the hood or under the vehicle. 10.1. All vehicles. Study the following vehicle parts for the type of vehicle.
Okay, get the point? It reads you the manual. Now, some of us retain information pretty well reading it. Some of us struggle with that. And audio files can be very helpful tools to learn information. I recommend these audio files for a lot of people. They're very helpful. You know, and as proof to the value of an audio file, complete the following sentence for me, please. Save big money at Menards. Okay? Everybody knows that because you've heard it so many times, all right? So there's the value of an audio file. So now this gets interesting. Let's look at how long these files are. To prepare for your Class A, you need to study sections 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. All right? Section 6, 43 minutes long. Section 5,
Section 5.
42 minutes long, so now you got about an hour and a half invested. Section 3,
Section 3.
that's the shortest one of them all, 15 minutes, so now you're just short of 2 hours. Section 1 is another 40
Model
minutes.
Commercial drive.
So now you're pushing maybe 3 hours or 2.5 hours, maybe 2.5 hours. And then section 2,
3 hours?
3 hours and 15 minutes. Okay, you're looking at 6 hours to study this manual. All right. Do most people spend 6 hours?
No.
No. Most people get about 20, 30, 40 minutes into the thing, and then they all of a sudden start doing this. Just kind of skimming it, right? And then they end up failing the test. I would suggest it's worth your time to read this thing. Now, there's a federal rule in play that says anything on any test, written or driving, has to be in the manual. So they're not allowed to ask you a question if it's not in the manual. So that's good news. But it also emphasizes the point that what you need to know is in the manual. There are a lot of questions that you'll get wrong if you haven't read the manual. I just guarantee you that. You have to know what their source of information is, okay? So I'd strongly suggest that you use that audio file to assist you. Good afternoon. Come on in and join us.
So, Bill, I got a quick, is this hazmat training?
No, this is the permit prep. That's wrong on the board up there.
I already got my permit.
Sorry.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Whoever did the board last week messed that up, but this is permit prep.
when I went to
Yep.
take my test, I didn't pass it the first time. And I was talking to the gentleman that was sitting, it was on a Red Wing, so it's on paper, not.
Right.
And he said that he strongly suggested not doing the practice tests online because they're old, outdated,
And exactly. That's why I want you to use cdltest.co.
yeah.
Because there's websites out there and practice tests out there that are not accurate. And then people get really frustrated because they go to those websites, they do well on those practice tests, and then they fail the real deal.
Yeah, because
Okay? So that's why I want you to go to cdltest.co.
I did amazing on those practice tests, and I went in there like,
So, and if you want to do hazmat, I would use cdltest.co for hazmat.
CDL dot. So it's on that.
cdltest.co, yeah, for
Okay,
hazmat. Yeah,
for hazmat.
yep. They have hazmat questions there. Okay. Now, if you're going to do the hazmat, there's still some value into what we're talking about here, getting into how to study the manual that you might want to stick around for,
Sure.
unless you've got
No,
other stuff
I
to do.
got it.
Okay. Right.
I'll make my wife shovel. That's good.
There you go. Okay. But your point is well taken. There are websites out there that don't work for people, and they get really frustrated because they go to a practice website, take these tests, pass them, then they go take the real deal and fail it. So that's why I'm strongly recommending cdltest.co. Are you doing a Class A or Class B? Do you know?
I am doing both.
Okay, well then you're doing Class A. A allows you to drive B. Okay. All right. What we're doing is going over the handout that's in your folder there. All right. 1 permit test on any one subject is allowed per day. Your first and second attempt at any one subject is free. If you fail 2 tests on any given subject, then they start charging you $10 for each subsequent visit. There's no limit in Minnesota to the number of written knowledge tests they'll let you take. They just keep collecting $10 for them, okay? The next paragraph, the test is available on paper or with a computer. Most exam stations require you to take it on the computer if you go to one of the larger exam stations. Now, the advantage of the computer is they have headphones that you can listen to. So if you like having the question read to you, then you'll want to go to the, hang on, I just want to check something here with my online stuff. Okay. If you like having the questions read to you, then the computer is the way to go. Now, I like the paper version for 2 reasons. First off, I can skip questions. And the computer version doesn't allow you to do that, at least the Minnesota one. The Wisconsin computerized system does let you skip questions, but Minnesota does not. I don't like that because sometimes I just can't remember. It's on like the tip of my tongue type of thing, but I just can't remember the answer to it. And so I would much prefer to be able to skip a question and come back to it later. Well, obviously with the paper version you can do that, but you can't do it with the Minnesota computer version. The software is actually programmed to allow that, but the state doesn't allow that. They want to make this test as tough as they can, so they don't allow you to skip questions. The other thing that I don't like about the Minnesota version, and this is true of Wisconsin computer too, if you get the question wrong, it tells you. And that's distracting to me, because now my little brain is going, okay, that's one. Oh, criminy, that's two. And now I've lost my focus because I'm worried about how many I got wrong, okay? The paper one, you have no idea whether you got it right or wrong because nobody's correcting it as you go. So I would prefer the paper one. Now here's what's interesting. The larger exam stations that are open 4 or 5 days a week have computers. And the ones that have the computers, they have a policy that they want you to take it on the computer on your first visit. Now you went to Red Wing. In Red Wing, they're only open 1 day a week, so they don't have the computers. They haven't invested in the computers with those small exam stations. Consequently, you are allowed to take it on paper, right? They're going to make you take it on the computer if you go to Egan. Well, how does that fit in with the United States Constitution? You know, that Bill of Rights thing? So if you want the paper version, you got two options. Go to Red Wing or Stillwater or one of the smaller exam stations that are not open every day of the week, because that's all they have is the paper. Or go to the Egan or Arden Hills or Lake Street or wherever you want to go and get there early and say to the person, I'd like to take it in paper. When they say no, you have to take it on the computer, and then very politely and respectfully ask to speak to the supervisor. When the supervisor comes to your attention, just politely remind them that there's 92 places in the state of Minnesota where a test can be taken, and not all of them have the computer. So if not all of them have the computer, that means that some people are allowed to take it on paper the first time. And if they allow one person to take it on paper the first time, guess what they got to do? They got to allow everybody to. They can't pick and choose, okay? And say, nah, these people have to do it this way and those people have to do it that way. It's not the way it works, okay? Now, why do you suppose they don't want to give it to you on paper?
Just more money.
No, it takes them more time. I mean, they'd actually have to correct it, which takes what, 30 seconds maybe?
Yeah,
They just put a little code over it and correct it, okay? Takes very little time, but it's more time than they're willing to give you, all right? So if you want it on paper, be polite, be professional, be courteous. If you yell at them and get hissy, they'll throw you out, okay? But it is an option. And I have had customers come back and report to me that they were successful in getting the paper version, asking and insisting on it. Yes.
The nice about skipping your question and going back to it.
Yep.
Sometimes in that test, I noticed the answer is in a question further down.
Yep.
On the one that you were, you know.
Yep.
Or they ask in a different way, and you're like, oh yeah, and then
Yep.
you can go back and.
Exactly.
That was kind of what I got out of it.
Yep. And for me, that's significantly beneficial. Okay. I did have to. We're getting licensed over in Wisconsin, and so I had to take some Wisconsin tests. And I really like the fact that the computer over there will let me skip questions and come back to it. So I like that. My handout says you should arrive at least an hour before the exam station closes. I'd say even earlier than that. It takes time. This is 100 questions that you're going to deal with if you're going to go for the whole thing at once. So give yourself plenty of time. Arrive more than an hour ahead of time. All the locations that the state has is listed at mindriveinfo.org. Type in your zip code, type in what type of test you want, and it'll list the locations based on the closest proximity. Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, you're never interrupting me.
Thank you.
Please feel comfortable to ask questions.
Are we going to go over the air brakes general knowledge and combination today?
Well, those are the three subjects, okay? what I want to do is go through the mechanics of getting the permit because there's some steps to that.
Okay.
And then we're going to get into how to use the manual to be able to pass the test on those 3 subjects.
Okay.
All right. Okay, next paragraph, you can take 1 subject at a time if that works for you. So you can go in on Monday and take 1, go back on Tuesday and take the other, go back on Wednesday and take the next. You can even split it up within the same day. So you could arrive early, go in and take 1 of the tests, tell them, okay, I'll be back, leave the building, go out, get in your car, roll the window down, turn on some music. Of course, this time of year, I guess you got to keep the windows up. And study the next section, then go back in there an hour later. So you're allowed to do that. You do not have to take it all sequentially, all in the same sitting. You can split it up like that, right? Now, if you do any of that, when you leave the building, make sure you've got a copy of any record of things that you have passed. It has happened on frequent occasion where people have passed a test of some sort, come back the next day and say, yeah, I'm here to finish up. I was here yesterday. I passed the general knowledge. And the clerks are saying, well, we can't find your test from yesterday. And people are like, are you kidding? I was just here yesterday. I passed the thing. And you know what they'll say to you? Well, then it should be easy enough for you to pass it again today. Okay? They'll just make you take it again. Do not trust the state of Minnesota Department of Public Safety to correctly document your process through this. These people make mistakes continuously and repetitiously. People are ending up with the wrong license. People are ending up with restrictions on their license that they shouldn't have. Okay? They are so messed up downtown there, it's unbelievable. So check this documentation. Hang on to any and all records. We had a customer last year, took a road test on June 21st, passed it, went in the next day over in Chaska, took his paperwork over to Chaska to get his Class A license. A month later, he gets a letter from the state that says, you've applied for a Class A license. There's no record of your road test. It's like, you got to be kidding me. He goes back to Chaska. Now, the problem was he had misplaced, lost the test score sheet from his road test, okay? And sometimes they keep it. Sometimes they'll give it back to you. In this case, they had given it back to him, but he had lost the thing, all right? You've got to maintain that record. So now he goes to Chaska. They say, no, there's no record. Go to Egan. He goes to Egan. No, there's no record. You're going to have to take a test. He comes here, pleading with us. Is there any way you can help us? And we're like, wow, we don't have the paperwork, but, you know, we have dash cameras in all of our trucks. We have dash cameras rolling in the truck during the tests. And I had to sue the state of Minnesota in order to make that happen. They did not want those cameras in those trucks. In fact, they took efforts to put me out of business because I had the audacity to put cameras in the trucks. But I sued them. We got a judge to agree. Yep, you've got every right. These are public officials performing official duties in the public. They have no right to privacy. Okay? So we got cameras in the truck. So we've got this on dash cam video of this gentleman passing his test. This whole conversation between him and the examiner. Congratulations, you passed your test. Here's your paperwork, blah, blah, blah. So what we did, it took us about 15, 20 minutes to find it. We archive every bit of videotape. So anytime anybody gets in one of our trucks, we have it on videotape and we keep it. So played it on a monitor, and I had this young man videotape the thing. He goes back to Egan, he goes, I've got video proof I passed the test. I said, well, go to Chaska. He goes to Chaska. I got video proof I passed the test. Yeah, go back to Egan. He's at Egan for the third time in the same day. I got video proof. We don't want to look at that. It's in the computer. They were still going to stonewall him, even though he had video proof that he passed the test. So he calls us. I get on the phone and I tell this young man, tell the supervisor to expect a call from my attorney. His name's Paul Applebaum. He'll be calling shortly. I leave a message for my attorney. Before my attorney called me back, this young man calls back and says, well, the supervisor just called me and they've taken care of it. But that's what I had to threaten to do, was get an attorney involved. Can you believe those people? We've had people who, one of our students had gotten his Class A license. He'd been driving for a year and a half. And he gets pulled over in a routine inspection. The trooper looks at his license and says, you can't drive this truck, son. What? Look right here. You got a restriction. You can't drive a vehicle with air brakes. What? He didn't read it. He had a restriction on his license that he didn't deserve because he had the CDL permit with air brakes. He took the road test with air brakes. He was fully qualified to drive with air brakes. but somebody hit the wrong keystroke, and then he didn't spot it on his license. So be anal about this. Make sure that everything you're getting from the state is exactly what you expect it to be, and document this stuff. Document, document, document. Don't lose anything. Don't throw anything away. Make sense? Because it'll come back to haunt you. All right, the last sentence on this thing says you need to complete a CDL medical self-certification form when you get your permit. If you turn to the last page on the handout we've given you, it has that form. Let me put it up on the screen for you here. When you get a permit, you have to complete this form. Do you have a DOT already?
Physical?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So you had it with, and you showed it to them, and you signed the thing. Okay. All right. Now.
That's your health card, right?
Exactly. Right. Now, if you already have your health card, it's real simple. Check category number 1, bring it with, show it to them, sign it, give it to them. The thing I want to bring to the table is you don't have to have your DOT health card to get your permit. You're going to need your DOT health card to get paid to drive a truck. So you're going to need it eventually anyway, unless you're doing this. Have you won the lottery and you're just doing this for giggles, bucket list thing? Okay. So if you're doing this to make some money, get paid for it, then you got to have the health card. All right. So you may want to entertain getting that ahead of time. Then it's a little simpler process. But you are allowed to get the permit and the license without the health card by checking category number 2 that you're exempt. All right. Category 3 and 4 are intra-state. That's staying within the state of Minnesota. Why would someone be intrastate? Two types of people fit into that category. Under age 21, and then people who can't pass a DOT physical. The threshold for passing a physical is lower at the state level than it is on the federal level. So that's why some people will get a intrastate. As an example, deaf people. It's easy for a deaf person to get an intrastate waiver and get a DOT health card. They can get the federal one, but it's a much bigger, longer process with a whole bunch more hoops to jump through to get it, okay? Now, this part of the equation is terribly important. When you get the physical, you have to register it with the state of Minnesota, and they put it on your driver file, okay? So that's what this form is to do. When you do that, and I'm going to, hang on, I want to check something here. Okay.
Yeah, he really didn't even want, at Red Wing, he didn't even want to take my medical card because I didn't need it. And
That's weird.
it's like, oh, you don't need this unless your employer is going to require it.
See, that just shows you the misinformation at the state. They just don't know what they're talking about.
He said, well, I'll take it if you want it. And I said, yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
All right. So what I've done here is I've gone onto the state website and I have put up my DL number here, my driving record. So since I'm doing this on the internet, I'm going to do that. Okay. So this is what my record looks like, or my, the public record here. Okay. So I have a Class A license. Oh, now my pen, there you go. My Class D is valid. My commercial is valid. Here are my endorsements: motorcycle, double, triple, tanker, and passenger. My medical self-certification, okay? I'm non-exempt interstate, and my medical health card, I'm certified, it expires on 6/5 of 2019. So the state knows when your health card is going to expire, all right? Now, this is really important, okay? 60 days before that expiration date, the state is going to send you a letter. I want to read you the last one I got from them, all right? Dear William, this letter is furnished as a courtesy to you by Driver and Vehicle Services. Your medical examiner's certificate will expire on June 8th. If you wish to maintain your commercial driving privilege, please submit the following documents. What this letter should say is, dude, your medical's going to expire. If you don't renew it,
I'd rather.
they take away your CDL. If you don't renew it by the date that it expires, they take your Class A or B, whatever it is you got, and they bump you down to a D. Now, if you figure this out and correct it within a year, they'll give it right back to you. But if you go more than a year, guess what? You got to start all over from square one. You got to go get a permit, wait 14 days, take another road test. And one of the other things that you want to factor in 2 years, there is a new driver training requirement that's going to come into play, and you'd have to go through a 160-hour training program all over again. Okay? So once you get this thing, you want to keep this. Now, let's say for the sake of discussion that you go through this process and you get your license and you go to work for somebody and you got a health card, and a year later, so a year from now, something else comes up and now you're not driving truck. Fine. Then 10 minutes later, you get this letter from the state saying your medical is going to expire. And you say to yourself, well, I don't need a medical. I'm not driving truck. True. Absolutely. You don't need a medical because you're not driving truck. But if you don't send in the form, they take your license away. You could send in the form and say, I'm exempt now. I don't need it. I'm category 2. Here you are. Sign it. Fax it in. Stop by and give it to them in person. And then they let you keep your CDL forever. Okay? Don't forget to resubmit this form when your medical card expires, because you don't want your license taken away from you. Make sense? Pardon?
What's the name of the form?
Well, it's the CDL medical self-certification form. It's the last page on your handout there. You can use the form that that I'm handing you. Yes.
So I have my DOT physical
Okay.
from Iowa State.
From what? It doesn't matter where it's from.
I can still use it?
Oh, sure. It's a DOT health card, right? It doesn't matter where it's from.
Do I take it to the DMV and show them?
Yeah. So when you go get your permit, bring it with you. You're going to fill out that form and hand them a copy of your health card. They'll photocopy and give it back to you. And then you're entered in the system and you'll have an expiration date. And then again, 60 days before that, you're going to get a letter that says, hey, this thing's going to expire. You need to renew it. And again, if you don't resubmit the form, they take your CDL away from you. But you can submit it and say, I'm exempt now. And then 2 years later, you need to drive again. Fine. Your license is still valid. You just go get another medical card, submit a new form with a new medical card. You're good to go. Get back in the truck. It's just, we've had several people in the last couple of years that have come in that have been in that situation where their license was yanked on them. Even people that were driving truck for a living and didn't realize that their license had been pulled from them. And they're driving trucks and they got no license to drive them, right? All right. The rest of the handout here, there's the citizenship stuff if you weren't born in the United States. Here, the third page is all that medical stuff I just explained to you about the CDL medical self-certification form. The fourth page has a bunch of information as to how to pass a DOT medical physical. That gives you all of those details. There's another page in your handout that talks about expedited license. That information comes again from the state. Let me put that up on the screen. Have you heard how screwed up the state of Minnesota is at processing licenses and titles?
Yeah.
They're pretty darn messed up. Okay. So you can expedite that process. And this is their, what they call a fast track. This costs 20 bucks. You would get your license much quicker doing this, but here's the caveat to it. You can't do this at a driver vehicle services location, the place where you take the tests. They won't do it there. You have to go to a deputy registrar. What's a deputy registrar? That's where you can buy license tabs. So if you can buy license tabs there, you can get your license quicker there. This doesn't make any difference with the permit because the permit is a paper, not a plastic card, and they issue the permit right on the spot. So this pertains to getting your license. When you get your license, when you pass your road test, I would not go in and get your license at the same place that you take your road test. I'd take the paperwork, I'd go to a deputy registrar, I'd pay the extra 20 bucks. You'll get it 6 weeks quicker. Okay? So I think that's huge. All right?
What about if they do the tabs at the same place? You can renew your license.
Yes, that's where you want to go to do the expedited, at the place where you can get your tabs.
And if they do the testing there too?
There's a couple of places where they're like next door to DVS and they can do it. So if it's all in the
Like
same,
Chaska?
under the same, can you get tabs at Chaska?
Yes.
Okay, then you can do the expedited license there. Right? Okay. All right. So now, when you look at the manual, let me put the manual back up on the screen here. So I told you you have to study 5 sections for your Class A test, right? When they first came out with the manual and the testing, which goes back into the 80s, drivers were failing the knowledge tests at such a high proportion that the feds asked AMVA, that's who publishes the manual, American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators. They asked that organization to do something in the manual to help people study for these tests. So they created these test your knowledge boxes. These boxes spread out through each section are the questions on the test. So that's what I wanted you to take advantage of, okay? Read the manual. But when you get to these test your knowledge questions, go back and find the answers to those questions, highlight them, and then you have the perfect study guide for this. That would be the perfect study guide. Finding the answer to those questions will tell you exactly what questions are on the test. Now, they might word the question a little differently. So, to assist you with that process, we have a little slide presentation to go through. This takes you through these test your knowledge questions. So what I'm going to do is have one of my instructors, Sam, here take you through this slide presentation with these questions. And then spend the last 10 or 15 minutes on cdltest.co.
Okay.
I've got that up on the internet if you want to use that. Yeah. We're also broadcasting this live on YouTube, and I've got the screen on display.
Oh, that's terrible.
So one
The
thing,
screen's on display, so you're not.
Oh, okay.
these questions,
Yep.
they're in order of the manual. So once you find the first test question, you know, the
Right.
test your knowledge question,
Yep.
the second test your knowledge question will probably be in the second or third paragraph down.
Exactly.
And so you're not
Right.
skimming all over the whole section to find each question.
But here's another little tip I want to give you. So remember my find box that I was using, all right? So like the first question, what's the most important reason for doing a vehicle inspection? Well, what if I took important reason, copy it and paste it in my find box, there it is. Safety is the most important reason, so you were right, okay? How about suspension system defects? Gee, where in the manual is that? Well, I paste it into my find box, and there it is. How cool is that? Right? So you can use the online manual to find where in that section this stuff is. Okay. So if you have any trouble finding it, use that online version. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Sam go through a bunch of these questions for you so that you can do that as an exercise and learn how all of the correct answers come out of the manual. And then we'll do, like I say, the last 10 or 15 minutes, we'll do practice questions on a cdltest.co. Okay? So with that, I'm going to turn you over to the wisdom of Sam Winger.
Thank you, Bill.
All right.
All right. So let's just jump into it.
So test your knowledge. Vehicle inspection report tells blah 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 blah. So let's go on here. What is the? Oh, we just saw that one. So let's go to this one. What things should you check during a trip? Anyone?
Brakes.
Brakes?
Air brakes.
Lights?
Emergency
What
equipment.
they're gonna say is for safety you should check watch gauges for signals of trouble, use your senses to check for problems. So what they're kind of getting at there is they're not talking about a pre-trip inspection, which is where you would check the brakes and all the connections, making sure the truck is proper and in working order so that you're not going to go down the freeway and have to make an emergency stop. What they're talking about is during when you're actually on the road, what are you going to be looking for? And you'd want to listen for air leaks, any sort of rumbles that don't sound right. It's pretty obvious if something's going wrong in these trucks. But yeah, watch for gauge signs on the gauges and stuff like that. It's a good way to let you know what's going on with your vehicle. Name some key steering system parts. Anybody know any?
Like tie rod.
Tie rod? Okay. Anything else?
Wheel.
The wheel? That would be important. So what the manual is going to say, you've got the tie rods, you've got the steering shaft, the steering wheel, you've got a power steering cylinder, steering arm, a spindle, drag link, steering knuckle, pitman arm, gearbox, hydraulic fluid reservoir. All important systems in just turning with the vehicle. Important stuff to know. Next thing, name some suspension system defects. So what could go wrong with our suspension systems?
Leaky hoses.
Leak air hoses, okay. Air hoses I would caution about necessarily suspension.
No, not air. It's some kind of oil goes in there, isn't it? No.
Oil. Trying to blank on that one.
You clarify what the suspension is.
Well, when they're talking about
Maybe like
suspension, they're going to be
leaf
talking
springs.
about, sorry?
Springs.
Leaf springs.
Leaf springs. So what could go wrong with leaf springs? We've got airbags and we've got shock absorbers. Those are typically the most common of the suspension systems you're going to find. So with those suspensions, what could go wrong? Well, leaf springs can shift. Spring hangers that allow movement of axle from proper position. Shifted leaf springs, cracked or broken spring hangers, missing or broken leaves. So this is mainly about the leaf springs, it looks like. But pretty much anything that would be out of the ordinary. So anything that's cracked, broken, shifted in an improper place, loose, stuff like that is more of what they're looking for. It looks like. We've got a nice little example of what they're talking about here. These are what leaf springs look like. It's a pretty heavy stack there. So moving on. What 3 kinds of emergency equipment must you have? Anybody know this one? Fire extinguisher?
Triangles.
Triangles, just triangles? Anything special about these triangles?
Emergency triangles.
I'm
What,
looking
reflective
for
triangles?
reflective. If they're not reflective, they're completely useless. So we've got fire extinguisher, reflective triangles.
And emergency lights, brakes. I mean, safety kit. Yeah,
It's-
safety kit.
It's one that you may not be thinking of.
Flares.
No, because since you have triangles, you don't need flares. Flares would replace the triangles, but what you would need, since we got the fire extinguisher properly rated, fully charged, and secured, so it's not rolling around,
Seatbelt.
reflective triangles.
Blanket.
Interesting. No, the answer they're looking for is spare fuses.
Fuses.
So you had the right track there with the light bulbs, but yeah, no. So if you're going down the road and anything happens and all of a sudden your turn signal's not working for whatever reason, or any of the components aren't working, and you check in your fuse box and fuses are blown, you got some spare fuses so that you don't have to sit and be, stationary for a long time. So that's what they're looking for. What is the minimum tread depth for front tires? Does anybody?
230 seconds.
230 seconds? It's actually 430 seconds. On the steering axle, it needs to be 430 seconds. Everywhere else, it's 230 seconds. So that's one to remember. What is the minimum tread depth for rear tires? Just went over that. That's 230 seconds of an inch. Next thing. Trailer tires is going to be the same as rear tires too. 230 seconds. What kind of vehicle is not allowed to have recapped tires on the front axle? Any guesses?
Commercial.
Any other guesses?
Recap the tires on the front axle.
Yep.
Are the recap tires, they come with the oil?
No, recap tires is like...
Retreaded tires.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so they basically just put new tread on the tires.
Oh, new tread?
Yeah, but it would be passenger bus. I believe that recently changed. I'd have to ask Bill for more information on that one. But yeah, passenger bus, no retreads. Name some things you should check on the front of your vehicle during the walk-around inspection. So during your pre-trip inspection, what is some important things to check on the front of the vehicle? Lights, well,
Door closes properly.
door is an interesting one to say. I would technically consider that the side
Okay.
of the vehicle.
So you're saying the front.
So if you're looking dead on with the vehicle, what exactly would you want to make sure that works? So your clearance lights, that would be something I would look for sure. I'm sure their answer is going to be really intense. Notice general condition, look for damage or vehicle leaning to one side or the other. That's a really important one because if your vehicle is leaning, more than likely, either there's something wrong with the suspension, which would be catastrophic, or more likely, what would happen is you just have some tires that are low on pressure. That's a pretty easy fix. Looking for oil, coolant, grease, any sort of leaks under the vehicle is important as well as you're walking up to the vehicle. Checking the surrounding area for any sort of hazards to the vehicle movement, people, objects, anything like that, so that you don't just take off and accidentally scrape alongside somebody's car. That would be bad. So that's what they're looking for an answer. Other things I would personally check, if you have your truck or vehicle on and the lights are on, making sure your lights work. Again, clearance lights and all that stuff. Condition, making sure there's no damage, making sure your mirrors are secured on the brackets and that they're not falling off or there's no broken glass anywhere. Is something else I would look for as well.
Is this for general knowledge?
Yeah, this is this is more general knowledge type stuff right now. Because this is what, section 2? Section 2 is mainly general knowledge. What should wheel bearing seals be checked for?
Tightness?
Yeah, making sure, so one answer could be making sure that all the nuts and bolts that keep it tight are in place. What else would you be looking for? So grease, or I believe what the answer they're looking for is, so not leaking. Mainly what they're talking about that, so that's not leaking any sort of oil, because I believe what they're talking about is a hub oil seal.
Yeah.
That's what we would call it on a pre-trip inspection. And yeah, that can leak oil, and you'd be able to identify that by the splatters around the rim. How many red reflective triangles should you carry? 3 red reflective triangles. Oh, the answer is literally right up there.
Where?
I did not realize that. Right there. Where my mouse is. That's funny. That is correct. You need 3. How do you test hydraulic brakes for leaks?
You have to push 3 times and then push it for 5 seconds. If it just comes back or something, it's tells you something wrong with the brakes. It's something like that. You have to push 3 times, and then you have to push it 5 seconds more.
Hold it down for
Hold
5
it down,
seconds
yeah, button
to
down.
see if it keeps the pressure.
Yeah.
That sounds about right to me. So test for hydraulic leaks. If the vehicle has hydraulic brakes, pump the brake pedal 3 times, then apply firm pressure to the pedal and hold for 5 seconds. The pedal should not move. If it does, there may be a leak or other problem. Get it fixed before driving, obviously, because you want to be able to brake. If the vehicle has air brakes, do the checks described in section 5 and 6 of this manual. So awesome job, by the way, because that's not necessarily the most obvious one to
Is this
be able to
correct?
answer.
I mean, I never take the test. I'm just wondering. There's 100 questions they're gonna ask us. Yeah. Total.
I believe the general knowledge is 50.
No, I mean
They
yeah,
have
I
they
mean,
have like a pool
50
of
is
500.
like is that the 4 options? We can leave the options and
Yeah,
choose
it'll
the
be multiple
answer?
choice.
Multiple choice.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have to know this exactly the answer.
Well,
I mean, yeah, I have to
see,
know.
but the you don't have to know it exactly necessarily word by word, but I would say you should. Just because when you get to this test, I mean, seriously, I remember doing the test. I did it like 5 years ago. Barely passed it first time. But those questions are hard. They're not obvious. They don't give you the exact, like, they'll give you a portion of a situation and ask you how do you best respond. Well, you don't have the full situation. You don't have what's around you. You don't necessarily have the exact vehicle speed or anything like that. So you kind of have to guess in a sense. And it's really easy to get something wrong. And the other part about this is if you're doing this on a computer, which I don't believe they allow you to do it on a paper test the first time. I believe they make you do it on a computer first. After the first time, you should be able to request a paper test. But doing it on the computer, they tell you if you get it right or wrong right away. And you know, that's intense.
I don't think they do in Minnesota.
Paper test?
Minnesota, if you get it wrong, I don't think they let you know right away.
Oh, I know they did when I did it.
Yeah.
'Cause that made me nervous beyond belief.
Yeah, I know. They did in, I took it in Iowa and I passed it on my 3rd time.
Oh, nice.
And, but I couldn't transfer it over to Minnesota, so
Oh, that sucks.
I got to refresh myself.
Yeah, retake
Yeah,
it.
but they allowed me to skip if I didn't know the answer, which was extremely helpful.
Oh, they didn't let me do that.
And they gave you the answers to the questions in the end. It was so nice.
They must have changed. And that was in Iowa?
Minnesota.
That's nice. That's not at all how it is in Minnesota. I know when I took mine, it literally was you get the question, you get 4 possible answers, and then you have to basically just choose from these 4 possible answers, and all of them seem correct in certain situations. And that's the problem. You don't get the exact situation. You get a portion of it, and you got to kind of figure it out. What's the best possible answer? So I would say, you know, the best way I can think of going about the test is try to do a process of elimination. Figure out what the least right answer is, and then, you know, just keep narrowing it down until you have at least 2. Then you have a 50% shot, at least. But yeah, when I did it, it was, you know, they told you if you got it right or wrong right away. Yeah, it was not fun. It was very, very annoying. Where are we at here? Okay. So why put the starter switch key in your pocket during a pre-trip inspection?
Because you have to close the door and chop the wheels.
Oh, somebody wrongfully go in the truck and start the truck if you're around the truck or something. So
Let's say you're under the truck, you're checking the slack adjusters to make sure they're not moving more than an inch. You're checking your brakes. Somebody gets in the truck, thinks, oh, it's in the wrong spot and wants to move it. Yeah, they're gonna like kill you at that point. Not even on purpose. To make sure no one starts up the truck while you are underneath doing an inspection. You don't want to be run over. So, test your knowledge, subsection 2.2 and 2.3. Why should you back towards the driver's side?
Toward the driver's side because it's easier to see.
That is the most logical answer. Backing towards the driver's side. Back towards the driver's side so you can see better. Backing towards the right side is very dangerous because you can't see as well. If you back and turn towards the driver's side, you can watch the rear of your vehicle by looking outside the window. Use driver's side backing, even if it means going around the block to put your vehicle in the right position. The added safety is worth it. 100% true. And I would also put in there, not for the permit test, but for in the real world, if you have the ability to get somebody to spot and tell you, you know, what's going on behind you, do that. It's so much safer. It's so much easier, so much better. Gives you a little peace of mind as well. If you stopped on a hill, how can you start moving without rolling back?
You have to put that thing. What is it called? Jack something. Level, some kind of level, isn't it? In the trucks, you pull it. Maybe I don't know.
Well, that's for parking, right? For an uphill or downhill, you need your wheels turned a certain way just in case your vehicle comes out of park, so it uses. Well, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. Are we talking about a manual or automatic? How can we tell? How do we know? And this is exactly what my problem is with the test. You don't have the full situation. You don't really know what the exact answer is going to be. But what they're going to say is, don't roll back when you start. Well, that's obviously. You may hit someone behind you. If you have a manual transmission vehicle, partly engage the clutch before you take your right foot off the brake. Put on the parking brake whenever necessary to keep from rolling back. Release the parking brake only when you have applied enough engine power. So you can use the parking brake. Most of these trucks have like a trailer handbrake. Guess you could use that, but parking brake is going to be probably the safest way of doing that. More than likely, if you're in an automatic, you're not going to roll back when you start up anyways, because you already got torque going in the direction that you're trying to go. So that's mainly an issue for a manual transmission vehicle. But yeah, that's how you do it. Come like halfway off of the clutch. That should start to engage the engine. Then you can come off the brake and you'll start moving forward. When backing, why is it important to use a helper?
Make it easier.
Make it easier, safer. Yep. So use a helper when you can. There are blind spots you can't see. And that's why Bill circled the blind spots part. It's very important. That's why a helper is important. The helper should stand near the back of your vehicle where you can see the helper so that you don't accidentally run them over. What's the most important hand signal that you and your helper should agree on? Stop. That's 100% correct. Stop. It's the most important signal. If you don't have a clear signal for stop, trust me, things get confusing very quickly. Very quickly. What should you do if you lose sight of your spotter? I would stop. As it says here, stop. Get out and look. And that it should say stop, put your truck in neutral, engage the parking brakes, and get out and look. So you don't want to leave it in reverse and get out of your vehicle. It seems obvious, but you would be surprised. Come on.
Are we going through every question from the general knowledge?
We're gonna go through. I want to go through a few more here, and then I kind of want to go. We're gonna spend more time on the website, the cdltest.com, because I want you guys to get a good feel for how that works too. Because that's going to be. This is really good for testing your actual knowledge, but that's going to be good for putting you in a testing situation. It's going to be more along the lines of your test, not necessarily exactly what the questions are. The questions are very similar to what they're going to be on the test. It's illegal to recreate, so they can't be exact. But yeah, so I want to do more of that just so you guys get a feel for how that works too. But we'll do a few more of these. We'll do maybe about 5-10 minutes more of this, and then we'll move on. What are the two special conditions where you should downshift?
Downhill
Mm-hmm.
and uphill. Oh, I'm sorry. Downhill and braking.
Okay. interesting. Downhill is correct. Before starting a downhill, slow down and shift down to a speed that you can control without using your brakes hard. Otherwise, the brakes you can use can overheat, and if they overheat, you lose their braking power, which is why you see those ramps on the side of long downgrades. Other reason, be before entering a curve. Now, slowing down before you enter a curve is really important because if you're going pretty fast, let's say your trailer's fully loaded, the contents shift a little bit, you're more than likely going to roll over. It's very possible. So you want to make sure, and I mean, especially if you're driving in Minnesota in the winter conditions, or anywhere really in winter conditions, you never know if there's going to be a patch of ice there. So it's better to go slower. When should you downshift automatic transmissions?
Same, Mark.
Downhill.
Some vehicles have automatic transmissions. You can select a lower range to get a greater engine braking when going down grades. The lower ranges prevent the transmission from shifting up beyond the selected gear unless the governor RPM is exceeded. It is important to use this braking effect when going down grades. So yeah, when going down grades. Not as important when you're going around a curve because you have more control over that aspect in a sense. But yeah, going down grades, especially some of these really steep ones, especially if you're going to be like in the mountains, you'll encounter some real steep downgrades, and you're going to want to make sure that your truck's not gonna try to push the speed limit too much, because you really can't rely on your brakes the full time. They will overheat and they will fail, and then you have no way of stopping, and that is a terrifying experience. Well, the springs won't pop out necessarily, because if you still have air in your air tanks, the emergency brakes won't come on. But even if they did, it wouldn't necessarily help because your brakes are already overheated. So it's not really going to do much. So yeah, it can be frightening out there. So it's better to go a little slower. Every time I'm out on a lesson with somebody, I make sure we're going 5 miles an hour under the speed limit, mainly for that braking effect. You'd be surprised how much more braking power you get just by going a little bit slower. It's amazing. Retarders keep you from skidding when the road is slippery. True or false?
False.
False. False. Let's check that out. Caution, when your drive wheels have poor traction, the retarders may cause them to skid. Therefore, you should turn the retarder off whenever the road is wet, icy, or snow-covered. This, I think, goes over what that is. I actually have no idea what that's going to... Okay, well, this just looks like it's showing how the engine actually works with, or how the pistons work. What are the 2 ways to know when to shift?
Speed and road conditions? No, speed and
Sound can be one. I could see that. I could see a good argument for that. There's a particular gauge on the truck that you use to shift, right? RPM, the tachometer. That's going to be the most important. When engine speed, RPM, study the driver's manual for your vehicle and learn the operating RPM range. Watch the tachometer and shift up when your engine reaches the top of the range. So that's one way. Second way, use road speed. Miles per hour, learn what speed each gear is good for. Then by using the speedometer, you know when to shift up. Sound of the engine, excuse me, that's not necessarily the best way to go about it. I would say if you're super comfortable and you know the vehicle really well, yeah, use the sound of the engine. But for our purposes with all of this stuff, you're going to use the tachometer the whole time. It's going to be your best friend with, you know, when to shift up and when to shift down. It makes it a lot easier. And we'll do a few more of these, then we'll head over to the website. How far ahead does the manual say you should look?
12 to 15 seconds.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, okay.
12 to 15 seconds ahead. That means looking ahead, the distance you will travel in 12 to 15 seconds. At lower speeds, that's about 1 block. At higher speeds, it could be a quarter of a mile, it could be more, depending how fast you're going. What are 2 main things to look for ahead?
Congestion.
Huh?
Speed
Traffic congestion.
and the
See
speed
that?
sign.
Speed sign. So look for traffic, look for vehicles coming onto the highway into your lane or turning. And then otherwise, look for signs and signals. Pay attention to the lights, traffic lights, stop signs, yield signs, curve signs, or any other devices alerting you to what to expect ahead. So yeah, all that would be correct. What's your most important way to see the sides and rear of your vehicle?
Mirrors.
Mirrors would be the most important. It's important to know what's going on behind and to the sides. Check your mirrors regularly. Check more often in special situations. So that is correct. When you're out on the road in a real truck, please don't be checking it every 5 seconds. You'll get really dizzy, and then you're not going to be driving nearly as safe. I've had a couple students do that before, and it is terrifying. What does communicating mean in safe driving?
Blinkers.
So like
Signals.
turn signals,
Yeah, emergency
hazard lights,
hazard light, yeah.
stuff like that. Signal your intentions. Other drivers can't know what you are going to do until you tell them. Signaling what you intend to do is important for safety. So anytime you're parking, next to a curb, put on your hazards, let them know you're parking. Otherwise, they're just going to be questioning everything that's going on. If you're turning, please use your turn signals. The rule is 100 feet before you turn. So make sure you're not dilly-dallying with that. Signals are very important. We can't communicate otherwise. Where should your reflectors be placed when stopped on a divided highway?
A divided highway.
Mhm.
So
So there is a median.
50 feet behind 200 feet, and then 200 feet. 50 feet, 100 feet, 200 feet.
Sounds about right. 10 feet, 100 feet, 200 feet. Close. Real close. Real close. And that's just to, again, let people know that are coming towards you that, hey, there's an obstruction up ahead. So they have some time to get out of your way. You don't want somebody super close to your vehicle while you're jumping out of there and
What about if it's
potentially
a
hit you.
hill?
If it's a hill, I'd put them a little further away. I think that's actually one of the next ones. Oh. Yeah. So 100 to 500 feet. So yeah, it's still 10 feet. I would probably do 10 feet. If it's a divided one where you don't have to worry about oncoming traffic, I'd do 10 feet, probably 200 feet, 500 feet, something like that. But yeah, if it is a divided, you need one, or if it's not a divided, you need at least one. You need one in front of your vehicle so that, somebody's a bad driver or, under the influence of something, they'll still have some way of knowing if they're in the wrong lane and they're coming towards you. Okay. So you guys seem to have a good handle on that stuff so far. Let's go ahead and go. Where is it? There it is. Free CDL test practice. This website's awesome. They've got a lot of good questions on it. It's all multiple choice. It's very similar to the test. And it'll tell you right away if you're right or wrong. And generally with this website, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it doesn't. If you get a question wrong and you move on, you can go back and it should ask you the same question. So you can do it multiple times to figure out what the correct answer is.
All the same questions.
Well, they're not the exact same, remember, because it is illegal to recreate a test. They're similar, very similar. Yeah, similar in how they're worded and similar in the actual information that they're going over. They're the same in the information they're going over, but very similarly worded because it can't be the same. So, you guys want to do air brake or general knowledge or combination? What do you want to do?
Let's do air brakes.
All for air brakes?
Sure.
All right. Let's do air brake. All right, what is a slack adjuster? Lever connecting the brake chamber with the brake camshaft. A lever connecting the brake chamber push rod with the foundation brake camshaft. A lever connecting the brake shoe with a brake drum. A lever connecting the brake chamber push rod with the return spring.
B.
C.
How many for B?
1.
How many for C? 1.
I think it's C too.
How many for A? How many for D? All right, we only have 2 people answering. So let's try C. A lever connecting the brake shoe with the brake drum. That was the one you, yep. Okay. Let's try that one. Next question. Okay, so that's incorrect. So let's try going back, see if it'll give us the same question. Ah, dang it. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't do it. The safety valve in the air tank is usually set to open and release air at 200 psi. True or false?
False.
False. That is 100% false. If you're getting even 150 pounds of pressure in your air tanks, that's a lot. That's a lot. Generally, I know all of our trucks, they tap out at about 120, 125. I've never personally been in a truck that tapped out about 140. But yeah, you don't want it going. You don't want it going too high, because what can be a problem is the governor in your truck tells the air compressor when to turn on and off. Generally, it tells it to turn on when you go under 100 psi, and it'll tell it to turn off wherever the cap is. Generally, some trucks are different than others. Well, all trucks are generally a little different, but if your governor's not working and you overinflate your tanks, that can cause damage, and you wouldn't want one of those things to explode. That would be deadly. So that's a good test to do whenever you're in your own truck.
Does it give you the correct answer when you're wrong?
Generally, if you get the wrong answer, you should be able to click back, and it should reload that same exact question. Sometimes it doesn't do it. I don't know why. It's technology, I guess. I don't know, the interwebs. But generally, yeah, most times when I do that, or I've done that before, it's gone back to the exact same question. But sometimes it doesn't. I don't know what the decider is, but
Does it give you the correct answer?
nope. Nope. That's why I would suggest going back and just trying to do the question again if you can. If you're successful to go back once, you'll be successful to go back a couple times. But yeah. So if the air compressor has its own oil supply, you should check the oil level before driving. True or false?
True.
True? Let's try true. You are correct. You're going to want to check every level of your truck, really, in reality, when you're getting ready to go and drive. Some companies will have mechanics do pre-trips on the trucks, but I would still do a pre-trip anyways, just so that you know what's going on with it. Letting up on the brake pedal reduces the air pressure and releases the brakes.
False.
How many for false? How many for true? So we got divided. You're for true? True? Let's try true. You are correct.
Oh wow, I thought letting up was like letting go.
Isn't that what that said?
It said letting up, right?
Yeah. So letting go of the brake releases the air pressure that's being pushed on the brakes.
Oh, okay.
That's where things get really confusing. Is that
When you say release air pressure?
yeah, so
Not
you're
down.
I'm sorry, I got that mixed up. When you're
That's what it said. It said release air pressure.
hold on, now I want to go back and see that. Letting up on the brake pedal reduces the air pressure and releases the brakes.
Well, if you keep some pressure on the pedal, it's
Yeah.
it'll release them a little bit, but it won't release them fully.
Fully, no, I get that.
I think for
That's
me,
still a
it's-
confusing question.
Yeah.
Yeah. The more I think about that, the more I'm getting confused by that.
let's just keep moving.
Yeah.
know,
We're,
right?
we're just going to keep moving on. It is correct. So, yeah. How can you test the low pressure? Come on, work with me. How can you test the low pressure warning signal? There is no way to test this. Turn the electrical power off and step on and off the brake pedal to reduce air tank pressure. The low air pressure warning signals must come on before the pressure drops to less than 90 psi in the air tanks. Oh god, there's a lot of these. Turn the electrical power on, step on and off the brake pedal to increase the air tank pressure. The low air pressure warning signal must come on before the pressure increases to more than 60 psi in the air tank. Turn the electrical power on, step on and off the brake pedal to reduce air tank pressure. The low air pressure warning signal must come on before the pressure drops to less than 60 psi in the air tank. Turn the electrical power off and step on and off the brake pedal to reduce the air tank pressure. The low air pressure warning signal must come on before the pressure drops to less than 30 psi in the air tank. Wow. Okay. See? Is correct. If you don't have power on in your vehicle, you're not going to have a warning signal come on because there's no power going to the warning signal. So there's no way for the warning signal to come on. You would not be increasing your air pressure by pumping your brake anyways. Which kind of braking system is the air brake system? A service brake system, a parking brake system, an emergency brake system, all of the above, or none of the above?
All of the above.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Yeah, all of the above.
How many for all of the above? Got 2. How many for A? 1. B? No? Okay. All of the above is right. It's all the same system. So you want to be really careful with your brakes. Don't let them overheat. The use of brakes on a long, steep downgrade is only a supplement to the braking effect of the engine. True, false, it depends on the weight of the GVCW of the vehicle.
True.
How many for true? It's a weirdly worded question.
I like this. This is
Oh,
good.
that's
Alright, well, I've only gotten one answer here, so we're going to go with true. You are correct. Just like we talked about earlier, right? When you're going down a steep downgrade,
you'd rather
you're
use
not relying on your brakes. No, they're to help, definitely. But if you rely on them, they'll overheat, and then you have no brakes. Then you have no braking power. Then what do? You can't really do anything, you know?
the emergency.
Yeah. So.
What did you say? The emergency.
It's the
So.
emergency ramp.
So yeah, remember that it's in our cars. Yeah, that's what we would do because we have hydraulic brakes. It just is a different system. It's a lighter vehicle. It's not gonna fail us as easily. It's not as much weight as it's keeping from going down that long steep grade. So your brake is your friend, but downshifting or putting on an engine brake is even more your friend in those situations. Which of the following formulas is true for vehicles with air brakes? Perception distance plus reaction distance plus brake lag distance plus braking distance equals total stopping distance. Perception distance plus reaction distance plus braking distance equals total stopping distance. Perception distance plus brake lag distance plus braking distance equals total reaction distance. Reaction distance plus brake lag distance plus braking distance equals total perception distance.
The last one.
Holy crap.
I know this is really
B.
How many for A? 1. How many for B? 2.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I say A.
A? Okay, so we're between A and B. So, let's see. Let's go with A and see if we're correct. You're correct. So let's see if we can get that formula back. So perception distance plus reaction distance plus brake lag distance plus braking distance equals your total stopping distance. 100% true. The time it takes you to realize what's going on in front of you, plus the time that it takes you to actually do something about it, plus the amount of time that it takes for that air to go through the hoses and actually react with the system, plus the amount of time that it takes for your vehicle to come to a complete stop, is the total stopping distance. So, I like to make it more confusing. Okay, so we got a few minutes here. We'll do a couple more of these, and then if you guys have any questions about this stuff, I'll do my best to answer. How can you check that the spring brakes will come on automatically? So this is just a picture of a spring brake knob right here. Step on and off the brake pedal to reduce the air tank pressure. The parking brake knob should pop out when the air pressure falls to the manufacturer's specifications. Step on and off the brake pedal to increase the air tank pressure. The parking brake knob should pop out when the air pressure rises to the manufacturer's specifications. Step on and off the brake pedal to reduce the air tank pressure while moving at a high rate of speed. The parking brake knob should pop out when... Okay, we can automatically eliminate a couple of these right off the bat.
Right.
Step on and off the brake pedal to reduce the air tank pressure. The parking brake knob should pop out when the air pressure rises to the manufacturer's specifications of 120 psi. Okay, so before we say the answer, what can we eliminate right off the bat?
Anything that says rising.
Okay, so anything that says rising. So let's go and check. Step on and off the brake to reduce, so not D. Step on and off the brake to reduce. Oh.
B is the one it is.
So B is the one that was talking about increase. So we automatically know that B is not right because we already have the knowledge that, or the understanding, I should say, that when you're pressing on the brake pedal, you're reducing the amount of air that's in your air tanks. So then which other ones can we right off the bat just say that's not right?
Everything that says rising and increasing, which is B.
Which was only really B, wasn't it?
No,
C.
D too. D is right.
Yeah, D.
Where does D? Tap on and off the brake pedal to reduce the air tank pressure. The parking brake knob should pop out when the pressure rises. Oh, it says rises later on. Yeah, so B and D then we can automatically eliminate.
And moving at a high rate of speed too,
Moving at a high rate of speed. Why would that be a problem?
because you would probably cause a jackknife or
Well, you're gonna experience a very
impact.
yeah. You're gonna that's essentially moving at 60 down the freeway, then forcing your emergency brakes to come on. You're not gonna have a fun time, and nobody around you is gonna have a fun time. So then we can eliminate everything except for A, right? So A's got to be the right answer, and it is. So generally, the emergency brakes will come on around somewhere between 20 and 40 psi when you're pumping the brakes, and that's very obvious when they do come on because you'll hear them pop on and see them. But okay.
Oh,
Yeah, that's false. It's not. There's no way that's true. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, any questions, you guys?
Yes.
Oh boy. Any questions I can answer?
I wanted to know if you could pull up the DMV test CDL packet or the pamphlet, what is it, instruction book for the CDLA on my phone and took me to the audio. He showed us that earlier.
Oh, are you talking about on the actual website?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that should be pretty easy to find. If you go to the actual DVS website, let me see if I can get to the home
Well, he
screen.
said you could log on to the Interstate Truck Driving School one, and it's linked.
Oh, we've got the link on our website?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
To DVS.com.
Oh, well, that's test, though.
Then he said you go to
Minnesota.
resources.
You said you go to resources?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
you're
already
in
in
resources.
resources.
Where's the resources? He's already there.
No, I'm already there.
Yeah.
So then we go to.
We've got permit practice
Minnesota
tests.
CDL license manual.
That's the manual, though. That'll just take you to this.
And then
Keep going down, I guess. Or you go in and then no, not yet.
This is just a PDF of the manual, though. I know I can find the what you're talking about. I found it before. I think this is actually here.
Is it DVS?
Yeah, audio.
Yep, here we are. So it's just go to
DPS.mn.gov.
go to dps.mn.gov.
DPS.
DPS.
DPS.mn.gov.
If you go home, it should look something like this, right?
Okay.
All the what's new and junk like that.
Yep.
And then you should be able to go to, I want to say it's actually Media Center, maybe.
I'm sleeping with the audio on, bro.
Where did I go last time I found that? Guess home. I know I can find it. It's gonna take me a little bit though. It's not Media Center. Contact.
I want to.
Oh my god, this is not working. Wait, what's that? That's not it.
Search this site.
Where you see that over on the right?
It was up in my
Oh, there we are. That's all they're gonna give me, huh? That's not what I want either.
And if you go to the CDL manual, will it do the audio?
That should give you what you're looking for. It's not. Oh wait.
Go down here, yep, and go to
Resources. There it is. Very bottom, resources.
Yeah, and then
Took me
document.
way too long to figure
Where
out.
did you click on? User guide?
I clicked on resources. I should have clicked on. To websites with related information, browser information, keyword search, search types.
I think it's user guide.
There. What the hell? It's not supposed to be this hard to get to.
Thank you for teaching.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not Bill, so I don't know everything on this stuff. I wish I did, but. What the heck?
I thought he went to the manual and there's something in the manual.
The manual?
Oh.
I don't know how he got to that. Let's try try divisions.
Divisions?
Oh, wait, that's probably not what I wanted. Oh, yeah, it is.
Found it?
No, that's not it. That's not it.
That's more documents.
Oh yeah, more documents.
There we are. So if you go DPS home, go to divisions,
Divisions.
go down to driver and vehicle services.
Where is that? Drive
It should be under in that tab.
the program?
So if you go to divisions,
Okay.
so go down, you have alcohol and gambling enforcement, Bureau of Criminal Apprehension.
Driver.
Yep, driver and vehicle services.
Okay.
And then scroll down, and then over where it says documents, you click more documents.
Okay.
And then it should be down, not that far, I went too far down. Down, and it should just say driver's manual audio files. That looks like the actual, you'll need to go to commercial driver's license CDL, I think. Wait a minute, that's not right either.
I just click on it, right? I just click on the.
Hold on though, that's Class D. Oh, all the way at the bottom.
Yeah.
All the way at the bottom is the Class A stuff. So yeah, down there you can download all of those or whichever ones you want, and yeah, those are nice.
We can download from here.
That's what I did. Hmm?
Okay.
If you play the audio, generally it automatically downloads it anyways. Like if you click on it, if it plays in your browser, which most cell phones don't do that, then you'd have to go back to the website. But if you click on it and it brings up like a separate app that it's gonna play it in,
Yeah.
click on the app and it will download it to that app. So then you just gotta go back to that app next time.
Nice.
Yeah,
Man.
it's super simple.
Thank you.
But yeah, the website's not, but that part is.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Blessings. Thank you.
Yeah.
Man, appreciate it.
Yeah, PowerPoint Zoom is always off, unfortunately. How do I end this?
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
So if I took my permit before
Uh-huh.
and I passed it,
Uh-huh.
are they gonna charge me again, or do I start all over from scratch?
I believe if you've failed a couple times and you had to pay to take your permit last time, they'll charge you again.
No,
I
didn't.
believe.
I failed one section of it,
Okay.
and I went and retook it and then passed
Okay.
the retake of that section.
But you've only failed one section?
Yeah,
I would say I believe you have to fail 2 or 3 before they actually start charging you per test.
so like if I took it 3 years ago,
I mean, as long as they have that on file.
yeah,
I can't say yay or nay to what they do. Minnesota's such a moving target. It's hard to figure out sometimes.
yeah.
They'll say one thing about this, then say another thing about the same exact thing, like a little bit later. It's
Well, now it seems like they're making it harder and harder.
well, I mean, yeah, they're making it harder, and they want to make it harder so that they can, they don't want everybody to be able to pass, because the problem is if everybody passes, then they have to remake the test.
Yeah,
Right? Because if you have too high of a pass rate, that means it doesn't mean that people know what they're doing. For whatever reason, that means that the test is not right,
yeah.
which is just stupid. But
Well, I just meant, like, I think they're making it harder and harder for people to get a CDL license.
oh,
compared to
definitely, definitely.
In the past.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, even since I got my license, the rules that have changed it's ridiculous. Like, but the part of the thing is their job is to make sure that they're not putting anybody out on the road that could be a potential hazard.
Yeah,
So that's what they're trying to do. And the problem is that the way they did used to do it, where you just basically go take the test, you don't need any training. I mean, there's a lot of shitty truck drivers out there, and they want to make it a safer area for everyone. You know?
Yeah.
So it's I'm glad they're requiring training, because I mean, if you need training to learn how to just drive a Class D vehicle, you should have to train to learn how to drive one of these things too, because they're big monsters, and if you don't know what you're doing, man, huh?
To drive a car like what Bill does.
Oh, I don't do that, but yeah, I mean, these things are huge. They're not necessarily the most straightforward thing either. So it's yeah, I think it is important to have what is happening here. I think it is important to have that that training, so that you know people aren't just on the road.
The reason why I said sound is because I drive race cars.
Oh, nice.
And a lot of times you don't sit and look at, okay, my RPMs might be 6,900.
Well, you're just
compared
racing
to
at that point, though.
6,750 is where I should shift.
Yeah.
And I'll hear the rev limiter come on and go, well, I guess I blew that shift.
Is this what I'm looking for? Yeah, this is what I'm looking for. Okay, here we go. So can I...